Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to That's Football. Enough is enough. I want to work through this with you on something that's been bothering me for quite a while, but we're going to start off with two stories this morning. Salah, interest from Juventus, Mo Salah of Liverpool of course, 1 year left on his contract, and then the Daily Mail coming out saying that West Ham have slapped a price of £150 million on Declan Rice. Now, obviously, that is an absolutely ridiculous valuation, but it did get me thinking about the summer transfer window, what's to come, what's going to happen with Salah. And as I said, something that's just bothered me, and I think it bothers some people for quite some time, this English bias that clearly exists. I'm not saying everybody, I'm not saying all media, I'm not saying all ex-players, I'm not saying all football fans, but there is an English bias that's been, it could have been running for 20 years. I've noticed it a lot in the last 10. And actually, does it do us any favours? I mean, look at England's success in tournaments throughout your lifetime. I guarantee we've not won anything. People will say, well, we got to a Euros final last year. It was a home tournament. We played pretty crap for most of the tournament and we massively bottled it in the final. And yet we value players. I mean, Manchester United have been a victim of it. £50 million for Aaron Wan-Bissaka, £80 million for Harry Maguire. Ridiculous values of players. And then you've got a player like Mo Salah, who I think is arguably one of the greatest players in the world at the moment. One of the best players in the Premier League. And what would they value him at? I mean, 200 million, 150 million? It just amazes me how we overvalue and overstate the talent of English players. Now, personally, I think Declan Rice is a fantastic player, but I'm old enough to remember a lot of other CDMs that England have had. I mean, personally, I think Nicky Butt's as good as Declan Rice, if not better. But people will go, oh, that's a load of nonsense, because obviously modernistic takes dictate that the past is never as good as the present. But Nicky Butt was a very, very good holding midfielder, had an amazingly good World Cup in the year 2002 and won a lot of things at Manchester United. He was a steady, progressive, impactive centre defensive midfielder. Now, back in the day, 2002, if he'd have left Manchester United or 98 or whenever, there wouldn't have been people offering £100 million for him. So why is Declan Rice suddenly an £80 million player? And I think I do think it comes down to that we undervalue foreign talent and we overvalue British talent. And unless you're, I mean, look, Son's another player. Comes from South Korea, doesn't get anywhere near the credit he deserves. I mean, I think most football fans appreciate Son. I don't really see him getting the attention he probably would deserve if he'd been born in Stoke. So, I mean, I accept that. This is the Premier League, it's in England, and England, you're always going to look at your own talent. But do you think it's got to a stage now where the bias has overtaken the talent of these players, where we actually do subconsciously or consciously overhype English players comparable to, I mean, look, Gabriel, what did he cost to come in from the French league for Arsenal? What, 20 million? Is Gabriel better than Harry Maguire? Well, probably this season, but even not this season, there's probably nothing between them, and yet there's £60 million between them. You look at Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Manchester United have spent £50 million on him. Give me another right-back that's come in from abroad, maybe Cancelo at Man City, what did they pay for him? I mean, he's streets ahead. And I don't think they paid any more. I can't remember what Man City paid, but it would have been around the same or considerably cheaper. And this is the issue for me. I think that at some point there has to be a who drives it, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say. Who drives this bias? Who drives these prices up? And why do people put up for it? Because I don't understand what the advantage is anymore. There was talk of, well, quotas of English players, but I don't actually believe that. I really don't believe that. I think that there is a massive tax on English players. And I will repeat this. I think Declan Rice is a really good player. Jadon Sancho is a really good player. You know, Raheem Sterling, Phil Foden, Harry Kane, Mason Mount, Trent Alexander. There's really good English players that I think top clubs would want. Your Bayern Munich's, Juventus, your PSG's maybe, and Real Madrid's and Barcelona. There are some, but their price is ridiculously prohibitive. And I see it constantly with my club, Manchester United, and I'm sure people see it with other clubs, and you see it with the media as well. If a foreign player has a bad game or does something wrong, the way that they get spoken about compared to an English player it amazes me. It amazes me. And people say, well, you're English, why does it bother you? But I suppose it's because I am English, but I was born sort of in Nottinghamshire, but since I was about 17, I've lived in Ireland, I've lived in the Midlands, I've lived all over. So I've never really felt that. I mean, I am English, but I don't feel this complete belonging, I suppose. And having lived in Ireland in the late 90s, early noughties as an Englishman, obviously that it was absolutely fine. I loved it, but I'm not Irish. I'm English, and how people treat you and accept you as what is an outsider, I suppose, has had an impact on me in a positive way, because I just think that most people treated me like they treat anybody else, and I don't know what it is. I don't even know where I'm going down this path. I just do notice it a lot in football, and maybe my eyes have been open to the fact that the Premier League is so diverse now, and has been for many years. Why do we champion somebody who's got a British passport? Why do we add another 30-40 million pounds onto somebody because they've got a British passport? Why do we overhype them and turn them into the next Beckham or the next Gaza or the next Alan Shearer just because they've got a British passport? I mean, is English football better now than it was 20 years ago? No. Look at that team in 2022. 2002 in that World Cup. Yeah, you've got Michael Owen, you've got Gerrard, you've got Beckham, you've got Scholes. You know, in fact, move two years further forward, you can add in people like Lampard and Rooney as well. So I don't think it's any better. I think the coaching's a big problem, but I think the value of English players is ridiculous. It's almost like, oh, he's half decent, he's got a British passport, let's add another couple of zeros. And going back to what I was talking about Mo Salah, 1 year left on his contract, and I mean, just very quickly on that topical. What's happening with Mo Salah? Because he's got 1 year left on his deal, and people are acting like he's going to leave. I don't think he would have the disrespect to run his contract down. And if Liverpool were to sell him in the summer, well, I remember this happened with Chelsea and Eden Hazard, and they got £100 million. So I don't see Salah leaving Liverpool. I don't think it's even a story. I really don't, unless he really wants to, and there has to be a deal. But Real Madrid, PSG seem to have their eyes on Haaland and Mbappe. Barcelona and anybody else, they're not going to have the transfer fee and the wages to pay Mo Salah. I think this is manoeuvring, and I think Salah's got to get the wages that he's worth, and I think most Liverpool fans would agree with that. And that brings me back to it again. I mean, I look at a lot of the stories written about Salah, and it's almost like, well, he might leave. And I think, I guarantee if this was an English player, there'd be a lot more uproar about it, and there'd be a lot more exposure on it. He's one of the best players in the world who could potentially leave the Premier League, who is waiting for a contract that he deserves. And I even see people on social media saying, well, he's being greedy. And I'm like, Cristiano Ronaldo's on over £500,000 a week. Griezmann was on 700 grand a week or something like that at Barcelona. Now, I'm not saying that those wages were ever realistic, but I mean, tell me who's the best paid player in the Premier League, and if I'm Mo Salah, I'm saying I want that. Like, he's been unbelievable in this league, and I don't think we give these players enough credit. I don't really understand it. And I'm not saying everybody. There are people in the media, there are ex-players, there are a lot of fans who really do appreciate these top quality players that we have in this league, like the De Bruynes and the Agueros that we've had, and the Mo Salahs and lots of other foreign players, the Thierry Henrys going back through the years. But I do think we overhype British talent, and I don't think it does us any favours, because ultimately I think I've seen it with United. These British players then believe it. I mean, we've got a problem with Rashford at the moment, where I'm not saying he believes it, but he's massively overhyped. For the last 18 months, he's been no better than Harvey Barnes, who is another English player, but because he plays at Leicester, probably doesn't. And it works the other way, doesn't it? Because it depends what club you play for as well. And it depends whether you play in a position where England doesn't have many players. Like, we don't have loads of good CDMs who are young. So Declan Rice is suddenly a 150 million or £100 million player. It's the manipulation of the situation that makes me laugh, because if you're at the right club or you play in the right position and it's a position that England need, suddenly you're the world's best CDM. And look, I don't necessarily disagree that Declan Rice could not be a world-class player, but I do think that the way that we overhype English players is problematic, and it has been going on for a long time, and I don't think it benefits us, because do these players believe they are something better than they are, and then the work rate stops? I certainly think we've seen that at United, where we've bought players or brought players through, and it's almost like they think they've made it, and the media make them think they've made it, and maybe they start to believe that they've made it. we've got a massive problem with every single English player at Manchester United at the moment this season. And some of them might have a Euros hangover. Some of them might be overhyped. Some of them might be just having a bad season. But apart from Jadon Sancho, who, to be honest, didn't have a great start at United, we've not had a great experience with our English players this season. And it's actually the foreign players, the De Gea's, the Varanes when he's been fit, Ronaldo. Bruno's not had a great season, but he has contributed, that we've relied on in a pretty poor season. So, yeah, look, I'm probably just spouting nonsense to some of you. Some of you it might resonate, some of you might have a completely different view. But I do think that there is an issue in the fact that you can go to France, you can go to Portugal, you can go to Germany, you can buy players for 30, 40, 50 million pounds, and then if you want to buy somebody from England, it's going to cost you another 30, 40 on top of that, and they may not even be as good. That can never be right. And who allows this to happen? And I tell you what, if I was in charge of a Premier League football club, if I was in charge of an Aston Villa or a Newcastle, and I had money to spend, I know where I'd be spending it, and I wouldn't be spending it in the Premier League, because I'll tell you for free, if there is an English attacking midfielder or an English centre-back or an English right-back and somebody wants 50, 60 million, I know I can go abroad and probably get 2 right-backs as good for the 60, 70 million pound right-back. In fairness, look, Arsenal overplayed on Ben White. Arsenal fans are going to lose their crap now. They're going to go, he's had a really good season. He has, but you overpaid for him. Look at what you paid for Gabriel, look what you paid for Ben White. I would open that debate up. Who's the better centre-back, Gabriel or White? Does it really matter? They're playing fantastically well for Arsenal as a pair, and that's what you want. You want a pair as a centre-back. One of you costs double the other. Case in point, case close. Why? Why did that happen? Why was that allowed to happen? Why is it happening? Clubs just seem to be happy to do it, but I don't really understand what the win is. If you get Harry Kane for 120 million, you're getting one of the world's best strikers. If you get Phil Foden for 120 million, you're getting an amazingly talented attacking midfielder. But a lot of these players that we've previously mentioned, you're spending 20, 30, 40 million pounds more than you should be paying. And why? Why is anybody doing that? Why aren't people saying to these clubs like United, we've just spent quite a lot of money on a centre-back or a right-back there, and you could have got one a lot cheaper. Is it status? Is it shirt sales? Is it Premier League proven? I don't know, but I think it is an interesting topic, and I think for me, enough is enough, yes. In my mind, enough is enough, but it won't stop and it won't change, and I don't know why it happens. Why do you think people do it? Why do you think when you listen to Sky Sports or BT or TalkSport or whatever, and you get a certain pundit on there who goes in on a foreign player but will leave a British player alone? Why is that? And we all know the people who do it, and people will start on about maybe Souness saying it about Pogba. That's not even who I'm talking about. That's not a bad example. I've seen it with ex-Man United players doing it, with the United youth players or the English players get more protection than the foreign players. It seems that people like Pogba and De Gea and Ronaldo and Bruno and Martial, they're open season, and maybe sometimes everyone deserves a bit of critique, but they'll be others will be more protected. You probably see it at other clubs as well. Why is that? I don't have the answer. Why do you think it is? Why do you think that? Is it an underlying bias? Is it a conscious bias? Is it favouritism? Is it just simply because some people want the English players to do better? I don't know. I get pride in the fact that you're English and you want English football to do well, but God, the talent, the talented player that we have now in that England squad is better than it was 10 years ago, and I think that's because of the quality in the Premier League. I think the influx of foreign coaches and foreign managers has improved. I mean, I look back to the early 90s, and I don't really remember the late 80s, and the quality of football in English football was crap. And I look at it now, and the influences of people like Jose Mourinho and Arsene Wenger and many others, Pep Guardiola now, Jurgen Klopp, has been fantastic on English football. Our game has benefited hugely from foreign input and foreign managers, and yet we still almost overexpose and overhype our players that really have become better players because of foreign players coming into the league and foreign coaches. So yeah, I've sort of gone round in the circles there, I suppose, but I do notice it, I do see it, and it does frustrate me that even though I'm a United fan, I don't think Mo Salah gets the credit he deserves in this league. I don't think Son gets the credit he deserves in this league, and I think there's many other players as well. I mean, Kevin De Bruyne, it's almost like, give him Player of the Year, but bloody hell, he's been in this league for years, and we are a diverse league. It is the best league in the world. It's the world's league. And I think we should just be a little bit more focused on the fact that the players in this league are our players. Yeah, when they go off and play in international breaks, they're playing for their country, but they represent the Premier League. And I think the focus on English talent almost belongs 30 years ago. It's almost like we take more pride in the English players, but every football club from Liverpool to Arsenal, their fan base is a percentage British, but a large percentage of it is American, all around the country, not just American, all around the world. So, I think we need to. I think journalism. I think ex-players. I think fans. I just think we need to not change. I wouldn't say anybody change. There'll be people shouting and screaming, saying, "Oh, I don't really care. All I care about is English players. I'm English." But that's your choice as a fan. I think in the reporting media, I think enough is enough. I think I'm tired of it. I think I'm tired of the bias. I'm tired of the overhyping. And I'll tell you for free, if we're valuing Declan Rice at 80-90 million pounds, then I can think of 10 other midfielders across Europe that should be going for 200-300 million. I mean, how much is Kimmich? I know he's getting on a bit now, but you know what I mean? Like, we overhype players. I'd love Declan Rice at Manchester United. Do you know what I think his realistic price is? 50 to 60 million. That's what I think. He's a CDM. He doesn't score goals. He's a holding midfielder. He's good at it, but you shouldn't be paying 80-90 million pounds for a holding midfielder. 50 to 60 million pounds in a realistic market. If his name was Declan Rice of playing for bloody Calgary in Italy, he'd be going for 30 million. And there will be players in Italy who are as exciting, but I think it all feeds into the same thing. We're absolutely obsessed with overhyping our talent, and if all these players are so good, why are we nowhere near winning tournaments? Well, we got to World Cup semi-final and we got to Euros final. We were fucking shite in those tournaments. The football was embarrassing. I think a lot of it comes down to coaching. I actually think if you gave Pep Guardiola that England team, we probably would compete for the World Cup. I think if you gave Jurgen Klopp that England team, we probably would compete for the World Cup. I do think it comes down to coaching. I do think we've got some really talented players, but I don't believe we've got a better squad than France. And I think there's other squads that can compete with us as well. But the transfer fees and the way these players are spoken about, it's like the reincarnation of the 66 side. They're not. And yeah. But look, on Salah, I can't see him leaving. I just don't know why people are talking about him leaving. And if he did leave, if Declan Rice is going for 150 million, which he won't be, I think that's a load of nonsense. I don't think he's even 100 million. But if Declan Rice is 100 million, Salah, with 1 year left on his contract, is 250. And that's unrealistic, isn't it? But that's what I'm talking about. If Declan Rice is worth £100 million with 3 or 4 years left on his contract, then Salah with 1 year left on his contract is worth 250. Because Salah is one of the greatest players that's played in the Premier League and he's one of the greatest players in the world. Whether people want to talk about that or not, I don't know. I mean, what I would say is, and I'll leave you with this, can you imagine if Son was English or Salah was English or Kevin De Bruyne was English? Oh my God. It would be wall to wall. This is the greatest player that's ever played in the world. They wouldn't know what to do. And I suppose that brings it home, actually. If Salah was English, imagine what all these ex-players and the media would be like. They would be like, this is the greatest player that's ever lived. That, to me, exemplifies the hype we give to English players, the value we hype up for English players. Because actually, that England squad doesn't have a Mo Salah. It doesn't. It doesn't have a player anywhere near that. We don't have a Ronaldo, we don't have a Messi, and we don't have a De Bruyne. We've got really good players for England, but we don't have that world-class top 5 player in the world. Imagine if we did. They act like they do. We act like we've got 20, but I don't know. Anyway, get your thoughts in. It's international break. It's something a little bit different. Smash a like on the video and subscribe. I'll speak to you all in a bit.